Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to try to take a more somber tone with this video because it's about a very somber and frankly very disturbing on many levels event. And I'm talking about the assassination of two Israeli embassy employees at the hands of a maniac who came all the way from Chicago to Washington, D.C. to commit these acts of terrorism. Oftentimes I get really excited when there is something that happens in the news that we can use either as a teachable moment or a learning opportunity. And this also presents that, but we're going to have to be careful how we do it because, again, I don't want to sensationalize this horrific act. But unfortunately, what's taken place, and when you even begin to connect just a few of the dots, it leads us to this very obvious conclusion, and it's the painful conclusion that we're going to talk about on this video today, which is this: the painful proof that gun laws just don't work. Okay, America, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a story that is obviously disturbing on many, many levels. I am talking about the cold-blooded assassination of Yaron Lishinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram, both Israeli embassy employees who, by all accounts, were gunned down at near point-blank range by 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago. Now, obviously, details are still coming out, and obviously there's going to be a lot more to the story, and it will change. But I think with what little dots we have that we can connect right now, I can show you that, in fact, gun laws simply do not work. Let me explain why. We're going to focus on two locations today. Mr. Rodriguez, the alleged killer here, hails from Chicago, Illinois. Now, if ever there was a county in a state that absolutely despises the Second Amendment rights of its citizens and will do anything humanly possible to write the most restrictive and oppressive gun laws known to man, it is in Cook County, Illinois. Now, a close second, though, if you want to figure out who has some of the most restrictive gun laws humanly imaginable, and for a tiny little geographical location, a place that's already made themselves famous through Supreme Court case law, and of course that is the District of Columbia. More interestingly, by the way, if you happen to take a look at the amount of gun violence you have in Washington, D.C. and in Cook County, Illinois, you'll see that it's two of the more deadliest places in all of America, but I digress. So with the few dots we have connected, it appears that Mr. Rodriguez traveled from Chicago to Washington, D.C., in all likelihood to commit these horrible acts. Now, that means in order for Mr. Rodriguez to have properly secured and owned a firearm in the state of Illinois, he would have had to first apply for an Illinois FOID card, the Firearm Owner Identification Card. Now, what does it take to get a FOID card, which is kind of unique? There's not a lot of states that require this. My state's about to join this, but this is essentially a pre-purchase, pre-possession license. It is a government permission slip before you can exercise a right. So that means had Mr. Rodriguez done this lawfully, he would have had to do the following: visit the IL Firearm Applicant Portal, and then, of course, create an online account. Complete the application, filling out the online form with his personal information. Then, of course, submit a photo, upload at least a recent passport photo taken within the last 30 days, pay the fee, and then, of course, get fingerprinted. And then, of course, the state would determine whether or not he was, in fact, eligible. Okay, so that's what Mr. Rodriguez would have to do in order to at least lawfully purchase the firearm. But then, here's the thing. He was carrying the firearm in Washington, D.C., and we'll get to what their laws are. But the truth is since Washington, D.C. has no reciprocity laws for out-of-state, one of the requirements to lawfully carry inside the District of Columbia is that you must have a concealed carry permit from your home state, which means if Mr. Rodriguez intended on carrying a firearm inside the District of Columbia lawfully, he would have needed to first obtain one in the state of Illinois. What does the state of Illinois require for that? Now, this is above and beyond getting your FOID card. So at this point, Mr. Rodriguez has already gone through a background check and all the fingerprinting and everything in order to get a FOID card. Now he wants to have a concealed carry license. So the state of Illinois then would require him to, 1, be eligible, be at least 21 years of age and not have any disqualifying criminal convictions. 2, complete a 16-hour firearm training course from an Illinois State Police approved instructor covering marksmanship and relevant laws. 3, applications are submitted then online via the Illinois State Police website. Required documents include a driver's license or state ID, the training certificate, your FOID card, photo, and residency information. Fingerprints are optional, but they can speed it up. Of course, a fee is required. And then, of course, the Illinois State Police will conduct a background check. Oh, and an important note, Illinois doesn't honor any out-of-state concealed carry licenses, so it's not as though Mr. Rodriguez could have been carrying from some other state's license inside the state of Illinois and then use that to lawfully carry in the District of Columbia. Why do I bring that all up? Well, because then we got to take a look at the District of Columbia's gun laws, because as we know, for a small non-state, the District of Columbia has made themselves famous for their gun laws, or rather infamous. Now, I expected when I started researching, can an out-of-state person conceal carry or carry a firearm inside the District of Columbia? The answer would be flat out no. As it turns out, there are ways it can be done. However, in order to do that, you have to have a non-resident carry permit. And in order to have a non-resident carry permit, you also have to have a valid concealed carry license from your home state. And then the District of Columbia also requires that the firearm that you're carrying must be registered within the district. So even if you've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, understand that unless that firearm is registered inside the District of Columbia, the carrying of that firearm is per se unlawful. Oh, and by the way, violating that law is subject to up to 5 years in prison because it's a felony inside the District of Columbia. Now, here's what we know, and here's what we can prove so far. That Mr. Rodriguez came into possession of a firearm, likely in the state of Illinois. He then traveled to the District of Columbia and committed 2 horrific violent acts. That being said, if Mr. Rodriguez had followed all the laws, he would have first been screened by the state of Illinois as to being an appropriate firearm owner through the FOID process. And then in order to obviously carry the firearm lawfully, both in Illinois and in the District of Columbia, he would have needed to go through a much more thorough vetting process and a requirement of live fire training. And maybe he did that and maybe he didn't. But then in order to carry the firearm lawfully inside the District of Columbia, there would have been a whole nother litany of firearm laws that he would have had to comply with, including not only obtaining a non-resident permit by having a valid out-of-state permit, but also registering the firearm within the District of Columbia. Now, one of 2 things happens, and either one of them, it proves our point. Either one, and this is the more likely conclusion, is that Mr. Rodriguez complied with few, if any, and probably none of these laws. And that's because gun laws don't stop bad people from doing bad things with firearms. Or maybe Mr. Rodriguez, in fact, complied with all of these laws. He actually threaded that needle and complied with all of the Illinois state laws. And he complied with all of the District of Columbia gun laws. Because in both instances, I'm sure that the legislatures who promoted that said that it was gonna save lives. Well, here's the problem. Even if he complied with it, it didn't save these 2 lives, did it? And that for us is the very violent and tragic proof that gun laws just don't work. Listen, we're going to go ahead and link up the stories we relied upon in putting this video together. Now, if you guys got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information, it's down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing about it, we want to hear about it by you clicking on that link right there. If you want to subscribe to the monthly newsletter, the ability to do that is down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner is to know what the laws are in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.